Hi, I'm Josh Cadillac, and welcome to my podcast, Know Your Shit. I've been blessed to see great success, as well as seeing the bottom up close and personal in 2008. And if there's one lesson I've learned, is that if you want to have success and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there, you need to know your shit. As a successful real estate and crypto investor and an educator, it drives me insane that people do not immerse themselves in their craft. Everyone is so busy advertising and testing new sales techniques, they forget the most important thing, the product. Here I want to talk to the folks that got this right, the most successful people in the world in every industry. Bring them to you and find out what they learned in their business that made it great. When you listen to my podcast, you will know for sure that the topics and experts we have on have one thing in common. They know their shit. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and once again, you're stuck with me in the driver's seat as we strive to stop learning how to chase paychecks and start closing customers for life. With me today, we have an amazing guest, Parag Amin. Hopefully I'm saying it right this time. He is going to take and tell you guys some amazing stuff. Parag, thank you so much for being on here.
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me, and you got it exactly right.
There we go. He can be taught. So, Parag, do me a favor. If you would tell our guests here what it is that you do.
Yeah, I'm a business litigation and business and partnership disputes lawyer based out of Los Angeles, California. I've got my own practice. We help small and medium-sized business owners successfully navigate challenging legal situations and disputes.
Love it. What got you started doing that? That doesn't seem like the kind of thing like you wake up and say, I want to get to helping small and middle-sized businesses resolve. Like, I don't see that as like the dream. How did you wind up there?
So I think a big part of it is background influences people's lives and trajectories. So for me, my parents immigrated to the United States from India. And I was born in New York. So we were living in New York. My dad had this entrepreneurial dream of he wanted to be a business owner. So what he did is he took his life savings and invested it in this store in Florida. And being an immigrant, not having a whole lot of connections, not being wealthy, he just tried to figure things out on his own. So he buys this business, he buys the entity that owns the business, and he and my mom were working 70, 80 hours a week for the first couple of years. I spent a lot of my time with my grandma, my dad's mom, because my parents were busy working. And the store was such that back then you could smoke indoors and people would smoke inside. So my dad didn't want me around that. So I didn't really get to go to the store that often. But I remember a couple years after they started, we just had to pack up our things and leave. So I learned later what had happened is my dad, after running the store for a couple years, the taxing authority of Florida came knocking and they said, look, you owe over $200,000 of unpaid sales taxes. So my dad says, that can't be possible. We don't make that kind of money. So surely there's some kind of mistake. They say there is no mistake. It turns out the guy who owned the entity, who owned the company before my dad, hadn't paid his sales taxes. And so because my dad bought the entity, he now owed the taxes. So they gave him two choices. One, pay the taxes, or two, shut down the business. So my dad made the tough choice to shut down the business. And after he shut it down, he was trying to figure out a way to get back into the game, but he had just lost so much as a result of this. And I was young and he had to support a family. So he made the tough decision to give up on those entrepreneurial dreams and get a W-2 job to support his family. So that really stuck with me from a relatively young age. So we moved from Florida. I bounced around a little bit. I lived in North Carolina, South Carolina, New Jersey, and eventually we ended up in Maryland, in a small little town called Salisbury, Maryland, which is where I grew up. It was about 30,000 people, and it's a small rural town on the eastern shore of Maryland. So from that early age, I decided that, you know what, I don't want this to happen to other people. I don't want this to happen to people I love. I'd like to be able to stick up for the little guy when they have these issues. And I don't want them to lose their entrepreneurial dreams or journey. And I want them to be able to protect their legacy. So I decided that I would eventually go on to law school. So I did my undergraduate degree in finance at the University of Maryland. then came over to Los Angeles and went to the University of Southern California for law school and graduated and worked in big law for a little bit, doing contract work, and eventually started my own practice because big law is very different. They don't work really with the small and mid-sized business owners. They're
Right.
really looking at the Fortune 500 companies. So I want to look out for the little guy. That's that was my dream, and I'm happy to say I get to live that out every day, helping clients just like that.
I love it, man, because you know that stuff that you see as a kid, it so sticks with you, and it changes who you are, and especially when it happens to your dad, and you see your dad going out there fighting like a good soldier to take and just try to do what needs to be done, and you see the system get him crush him. You yeah, no, I could totally see that, man, and I mean, I applaud you for doing what needs to be done to make sure it doesn't happen because yeah, man, that's a right. If there's any righteous reason to do something, that's a pretty darn good one right there. So, what do you like best about what you do?
I like there's a lot. What I like best, I think, is the opportunity to really make a difference in people's lives. And I know that people say that in various industries, but I really believe that when we're able to help somebody save their business from literally, we've not had one or two, but we've had many cases where these are bet your company type cases, where if they lose this litigation or this dispute,
They're
it
done.
could cost them everything. It could wipe them
Yeah,
out. So it's not just a business; it's their legacy beyond that because the business is something they do for livelihood. Hopefully, they really enjoy it and like doing it. But there's something about having your own business that ripples through time. There's a legacy aspect to it, and so I love this opportunity to be able to come in and make a difference, not just in that one person's life, but then in their family members' lives. Things that can echo through multiple generations if done correctly.
sure. No, no, and I mean it's one of the things. I mean, I know you said you're from India that your culture does so well is respecting the legacy of generations gone past and representing the family going forward. It's something that we in America have moved so much away from that I think it's to our detriment to some extent. I tell the story every once in a while on a show. There was a gentleman. He was from India, and his father was a big deal in India, and so he went to go speak. He came to the United States, Canada and the United States, and he was very successful. And so he goes back to India to give a talk. And so the guy that's going to introduce him starts talking about his father, and he tells everybody all about this guy's father. And then to introduce the guy, he says, "And this is this guy's son." And that was the entire intro. The intro was all about the guy's father, and this is this guy's son. And that was it. And it was just such a different thing. His wife was from over here, and she's like, she doesn't get it. And it's just a difference in the way that uh, many cultures still respect those that made us who we are, right? That we're the byproduct of what a lot of people have poured into us. So I love I love the connection, man. It's such good stuff in my universe here. So where do you think the success came from for you, Parag?
I think it came from something you touched upon a little bit, which is this idea of the long term. So it's beyond. So we were talking about the father son relationship or this idea of history. So it's that's a long term idea.
Sure.
So I have always looked at things for the most part, especially when it comes to business or career or helping others. In that very sense, it's a long term game, and looking at things that way has helped me optimize for the long term as opposed to just looking at short term gains and trying to make a quick buck, a fast buck, and instead looking at things as relationships, as trees. Trees don't grow overnight. They take a long time to grow. But once they do grow, they have deeper roots. They last longer. They're trees that can live hundreds of years
Yep.
because of that very issue. They take their time to grow. And I think relationships and business and careers are very much like that. It's a long term game. It's got to be nourished in the right way. There's certain things you just can't speed up. Of course, you want to move things efficiently as quickly as you can, but there's aspects to things that take time. They take time to perfect. And I know we were talking about this. You're a big advocate. Before we started the podcast, we were talking about this idea of knowing your shit, knowing your stuff, knowing taking the time to learn it And I love that you're about that, Josh, because I think that that is an often overlooked thing, and it's so critical.
Yeah, no, I mean it's I teach agents all the time, and it's one that they hit me with. You know, when the customer comes in thinking more than they know more than you do, and I say to them, look, if anybody can come in and eat your lunch at what you do for a living, that's on you. I don't care where their degree is. I don't care. This is what you do. There is no one that should be able to come in here and know more about you, what you do, than you do. That's entirely something that you are in control of. And sadly, people just don't take that individual personal responsibility to be good, to have that be part of what they require from themselves to be in a career. Most people are just looking to do, well, frankly, real estate, they medicate this with advertising. They have a 12% customer retention rate in my industry, which means 88% of the time after the customer experiencing is using an agent for, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, however long it takes, the experience is so forgettable that they'll work with somebody else the next time. That's what you left them with. And it's such a tough thing. And I mean, I love what you're saying actually, because one of the people that I interviewed on here was a gentleman named Larry Pino, who was an attorney of my father's. And my father had lots of attorneys because he did a lot of different businesses and all this sort of thing. But Larry was always different. My father always thought of him differently because he was a successful businessman and an attorney. And he valued the friendship with my father more than the legal business with my father. And he was always the guy that would invest in his clients to help them become the bigger client, to be the bigger thing, even if maybe everything that should have gotten billed didn't get billed this time or whatever else. He built into his customers. And this is the reason why my father had all this loyalty. You know, if it was ever, oh no, if it got bad enough, we call Larry. He's the enforcer, right? He's the guy we go to because we know he's pulling in the same direction as us, right? He's for the family. And it's a different sense of doing business, this pursuit of excellence that seems to have fallen out of I don't know, fallen out of fashion, if you
Why do
will.
you think it has?
Because it's all about the the fiction, the social media fiction. What do we see? You open social media, you see, love forever, the couple holding hands on the beach. You and I both know they're getting divorced. He cheated on her and she's out seeing somebody else too. Like, but we see this idealized picture. So everybody's trying to take and I think present the picture rather than the substance. The picture is
Mhm.
easy, the substance is hard. And so we've been told to like covet the substance, or I'm sorry, the picture, and not to pursue the substance that makes the picture actually something tangible and worthwhile and real, if that makes any sense.
Makes perfect sense. I get exactly what you're saying. It's the superficial aspects of the things we see as opposed to the work that goes into creating something that's real.
There was a movie my father watched. I can never remember the movie. I can never find the movie, but there's a scene where like the guy's a cattle farmer, and they get word that there's like a sickness going around, and that all the cattle has to be killed because to prevent the spread of the sickness. So they dig a big hole in the ground, and they push the cattle into the hole, and then they take and they get guns and they shoot the cows. And the young son is there with the father, like a teenager, and he says, "Well, that was easy." And the father says, "Yeah, it's the killing is easy. The growing is what's hard."
Mm.
Because the son doesn't realize what went into. And that's the thing, like when you lose the value of the legacy that got you here, when you devalue that, you lose respect for what went into what got you here. There's a great book called Dear Father, Dear Son, written by Larry Elder. And in the book, and Larry Elder's a guy from out in your side of the country over there, but and he's got a whole bunch of political stuff. But the book is actually just about the relationship of him and his father. And he grew up. His father was, his parents were married and everything, like everything. But he was terrified of his father his entire youth. His father used to go to work super early, and so he had this view of his father as this horrible guy, this mean, miserable guy. And he has a conversation like his early 20s with his father. One conversation, and it completely changed the way he thought about his father and the way he felt about his father. And they had this tremendous relationship because he never thought about the sacrifice the father was making. I mean, the father was running this restaurant on his own, supporting the family and all this kind of stuff that he was doing. He's getting 4 hours of sleep a night. I mean, you know, And so super really interesting read of how much just the change in from a selfish perspective to a perspective of thinking about what went into what got us here, how that can change everything and bring us to gratitude and appreciate what went into things. And I think that's missing too, actually.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a sense of connectedness that's missing. There's a sense of actual connectedness as opposed to an artificial sense of connectedness.
Yeah.
And
And I think,
so,
God, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
well, I mean, just social media or anything, right? There's this idea that I've got all these followers, I've got all these likes, I've got all this, but it's just not real.
Mhm.
It's I mean, there's no replacement for human relationships, and human relationships have to be human to human. They can't be just
Screen to
someone
human.
like on a screen.
Yep. No, I've said it for a while. I call it like when you go to, I don't know if you ever made the mistake. You go to the movies and then you go to dinner. What happens? You get hungry in the movie theater, so you get the popcorn, and then you go to dinner, and now you want to eat something that you like, but you're full from the popcorn. The
Hmm.
social media is like the popcorn; it scratches the itch of the hunger. But if you didn't eat anything but popcorn, you'd get sick and die because popcorn's not what sustains you. You need to eat a real meal. But because you fill up on the popcorn, the social media, it it takes away the appetite for the actual human interactions that have the nutritional value that we need to keep us healthy. Because human beings need connectedness. It's the reason why people felt like you watch the movie Cast Away and he loses the volleyball and like you're devastated. It's a freaking volleyball, but it was his only connection to connectedness. And we as human beings like feel that so deeply, right?
Yes.
Um, and it's a thing. And so connection to the people that got us here, our family in the past, and also connectedness to people around us that help to make us better. I think it's all part of the recipe that gets us out of our own head and out of our own bullshit long enough to actually do something worthwhile and great. Because everybody seems to be falling short of what they're capable of, and I think that having people that'll call you out on that is what we need to surround ourselves with.
100% agree with that. And I think that goes into a lot of what you do, a lot of what I do. At a certain level, you achieve a certain amount of financial success, we'll call it, that you don't really necessarily need more for yourself, but
Mm-hmm.
you are of service to other people. And so it's beyond you. It's not like a selfish thing. And I think when people optimize just with well, I've got enough. And so I don't need to work harder. I look at this video that I made about me as opposed to what value can I provide to others? What service can I be of to others? And I think if that service element is lacking, someone's life is always, always going to be hollow, no matter
Sure.
how much they have physically.
Yeah, no, a self-centered life it's just not a good one. The Ebenezer Scrooge factor, right? You watch that movie and all that he had, all that you do in that movie is feel sorry for Scrooge because he's missing out on so much. And it's such a simple lesson, yet we people miss it all the time and live their lives for themselves rather than as long as it needs to be for more. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because it seems like we could, but I wanted to ask you this: what do you think makes you good at what you do?
I think it's the idea of wanting to be of service and always looking for ways to become better at what I do. There's a passion, there's an innateness to that always makes you better, as opposed to feeling like I know everything. I know a lot, but there's so much more that I don't know.
Oh
And
yeah,
that drive and that hunger to always look for a better way, to always look for ways to be of more service, more value to others. You can't help but improve when you do that.
yeah, and it makes every day a new adventure, right? There's more out there. It's such a big, beautiful world, and people find ways to be miserable in it, and it blows my mind. I mean, the crazy thing is, and you've probably seen this, out there on the left coast, you have all these incredibly wealthy people who are so miserable. I mean, they've chased so much stuff. They don't work hardly at all anymore, and they find ways to be upset and miserable about all kinds of things. And you think it's very much the old man in the sea. You chase and chase and chase this thing, and you get it, and it winds up that's not where meaning was found after all. I got a brother that's a philosophy professor, so it's always about like what is that actually meaningful thing. And it seems so many people have set their targets on the dollar signs as there's going to be enough. I'm going to get enough of them at some point that then it's going to be good.
Yeah, and I think
And
that's the dark side.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Josh. Did I?
No, 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 no. Go ahead.
So I think that's the dark side, meaning the money without some attitude, some major attitude, a bigger attitude than the money of service, is always going to be hollow. There will never be enough. As opposed to if money is made in a meaningful, substantive way that you are of service to others, then it'll be fulfilling. As opposed
Sure.
to eating a bag of chips, you feel like you're doing something. But I
Yeah,
don't think there's really anybody who's ever eaten a bag of chips where they're happy that they ate a bag of chips, and at the end of it, they're like, "Oh, I feel fulfilled or
I
sustained."
feel fulfilled as a human being. That was,
Yes,
yeah.
right.
No, I'm with you. It's-
So it gives you something to do, and it tricks you because it makes you think you're doing something of interest or of value. Just like eating chips, you think you're eating something that's of value. It tricks you.
yeah,
The whole thing is a lie. As
yeah.
opposed to if you eat something substantive, something nutritious, you know once you're done eating that you did something meaningful. And when you
Mhm.
reflect back on it, it was helpful to you. Just like if you're of service to others, you've done something of value for somebody else, and that's the meaning behind it, as opposed to the dollar signs.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that, also an appreciation for the work that you do. This is one of the things that kind of bugs me in society today, which is that, business people are kind of looked down as almost exploiting people. That they're taking from others, and we don't acknowledge that it's a free will exchange that people make. Like, hey, look, I work for this money, but whatever this product is, I'm more than willing to exchange my labor for that product. And so, if you make a good product, and that's how you're earning your money, that's also you giving back to society by making sure that what you're turning out is something good. I mean, say what you will, every time I don't have to put pants on to go buy stuff, I am very grateful for Jeff Bezos and Amazon. I open that little app, dude, and man, this is pants free shopping. This is this he I was his demographic, no pants required, right? He made my world a slight bit better, and he saw a need, found it, and filled it. So you could be mad at him for having that giant boat. I am thrilled for this guy that he found a way to make this many people's world that little bit better. Because without that, we were back to a way that wasn't as good. The reason why people do it, the reason why he has that money is because of free will exchange that people have made because they value what he brought to the table. And so I think if you make peace with that and you just try every day, even with the work that you do to put out a great product, as it seems like you're doing, like you're going out there and you're like, I don't know everything, and I want to know as much as I can. Like I want to die learning something new, right? Let me go down like that. Let me go down in that blaze of glory, right? Um, but it doesn't seem like it seems like so many people are just punching the clock, and that is a soulless grinding way to live life. And I think it's the reason why when you see people walking down the street, the look on their face, so few people have a smile on their face, and when you do see somebody with a smile on your face, it's such an outlier.
100%. Unfortunately, yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Eh, eh. Unfortunately, we have to agree, right? This is not
Yeah,
what we want to
unfortunately,
agree.
that is reality. Yeah, I wish it weren't that case, but you're absolutely right.
So let me ask you kind of a change of pace, and this is one to just to toss out there because I always love to see everybody's in different markets that I interview. So, what do you see as the opportunity in the market today?
In which market? Like the business
Doesn't matter,
market, real
man.
estate market.
Take it whatever way you want to. What's the thing that's new, interesting, cool that you see that you think, man, this is an opportunity?
I think the ability to leverage AI. There's a fair number of people in every industry who are terrified about AI,
Hmm.
including lawyers. They're like, look, AI is going to cost us our jobs. We don't know if we're going to have to shut down our doors. AI is attacking us. But the reality is, the way I see it, in any industry, if you're scared of AI replacing you, then you probably should get replaced because you're
Yeah,
not doing enough
you're not very good at what you
ahead
do.
of the curve. As opposed to, I love the AIs here because it lets us do things more efficiently for our clients. Whereas, like, it might take a lawyer 3, 4, 5 hours to sort through this 1,000 pages of documents. I can have AI do it like that. And I
Hmm.
can find the key things that I'm looking for very quickly. So I can pass that efficiency on to my client and I can focus on bigger, more important things to create value for my client than literally reviewing 1,000 pages of documents, when I'm looking for one or two lines, very specific lines or very specific pieces of information that AI can find for me in seconds or a few minutes.
Sure. No. I hear what you're saying, and because I'm in one of the industries also that they're saying is going to go away because of this at some point, and the ability to sit down with the customer, listen to them, and figure out a bespoke answer based upon the nuances of their situation. AI is going to have a long way to go to catch up with that, because while it can aggregate data very, very well, the ability to take and cobble together what can be very disparate parts to make a solution for people, I just don't see it being there. For me, I always say, look, with the real estate industry, somebody's got to show them the property, because no, you could tell people how great VR is, whatever. Nothing is going to give you the sense of cat pee smell that you get when you walk into a place. I don't care how good the VR headset is, right? So people want to walk in, they want to see it, they want to feel it, touch it, taste it. And I mean, I get for years, like paralegals and things like that, it might definitely take and make it so you need less labor to get the same work done. But as far as that person to sit down with, listen to the thing, and help weave that narrative story of this is the path forward, that business advice piece too, cobbling together, that's always what it winds up being, right? Parag is not just your lane, but what you know of the other lanes that are out there, and say, hey, look, I'm not an estate attorney, but if you get with the estate attorney and you get your accountant on this, and then we can get this guy over here, this is what this guy's going to do. And with all of us together, I think we could take and make this happen, right? Putting those pieces together. That's so much of what I wind up doing. Hey, let me introduce you to the kitchen guy. This guy's going to take care of getting, it's those pieces, right? And so it's more movement away from community, really. Let's have less human interaction. And I think you're seeing pushback from it a little bit too. So it's using AI like what I think it's always been designed to be, which is a tool, using the tool well, and not thinking that, oh, they invented a hammer, that's going to take away the need for screwdrivers. No, we still need them.
Totally.
And I think that's really what it is. I mean, for us in real estate, it's been this big lawsuit that just came down, and everybody thinks that, it's the end of real estate as we know it, and they're going to burn it to the ground and all this other fun stuff. And sadly, people just don't understand. They just don't understand what's going on. They don't understand the value proposition. They don't understand why it is the way that it is, and how that allows for the buyer to finance into the purchase price of the house. Like, there's just fear. Just like you're talking about with AI, it's just fear. Their approach to anything that's different is, let's be afraid of this. It's the end of my career. Let's find a reason to worry. And I don't know why seems to be such a natural human response, but it definitely seems to be a thing.
Yeah, I think that there's an aspect to human beings that fear is kind of an innate based response, whatever seems to threaten one's existence. And these days, we're all so comfortable that, back in the day, people were literally running from predators, trying to protect themselves.
Sure.
Fast forward, or dying from starvation. Fast forward today, you have people having heart attacks because they've just eaten too much, or they just haven't taken care of themselves. It's literally the opposite of, we're threatening our own survival from our own behaviors, from being too comfortable. So this kind of thing, where it revolutionizes industry, AI, for example, is similar to the internet coming out, where the internet revolutionized everything. And people say, well, it's going to cost us our business. It's going to put us out of business. Well, sure, it will, if you don't evolve with it, if you don't learn how to use it and adapt it into your progress, into your business, and figure out how you leverage it to make yourself better. Of course it will.
I think that's really an interesting thing. And it's that fear. It's always irritated me with people always pointing to that with capitalism as one of its big drawbacks, is there's this obsolescence where industries just now heartlessly get wiped out. And, all these jobs that are going to disappear. This was a nation of farmers a couple hundred years ago, and like 90+% of everybody had a taken farm. And then they invented farming equipment, and they didn't need so many farmers. Did everybody wind up out of work? Somebody had to build the farming equipment, right? And so, the idea that the internet was going to put us all out of business, how'd that work out, right? There's so many more employment opportunities that exist that the internet allowed to be. It allowed people to come up with new ways. This is the thing, Parag, that I love so much, is the innovation that capitalism drives. I watch a show like Shark Tank. Somebody is on there that found a problem that I didn't even know I had and have solved it in such a way that I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And now I have to have it. It's genius because everybody out there is looking at what somebody else needs and trying to figure out how they can get it to them better than they can get it themselves. It's such a beautiful system. And yet people want to take a look at any new thing and say it's going to take and bring it all crumbling to its knees. And it just seems like what it's going to do is just provide different opportunities. Yeah, you know what? Wagon wheel manufacturers, not the same thing it was as it was in 1900. But we sure go through a lot of car tires, don't we? Right? There's been other things that came along that serve to replace this. So you're going to have to adapt, I suppose, is what it boils down to.
I agree with that. There's an aspect to this that I think is comparable to, if you look at a pond, is the water safe to drink out of a pond? No, it's not. Why? Because water that's stagnant is going to go bad. It's dangerous. Now, is it safe to drink water out of a river? Probably. It's going to be cleaner. Why? Because it keeps flowing. That's this idea. The stagnation is what's dangerous. So capitalism, when done the right way, entrepreneurship, when done the right way, with the right values, is that river that keeps flowing. That's innovation. That's life.
So the big takeaway here is be the river.
Be the river.
It sounds very zen. I love it. Be the river. All right. So let me toss this out there. What do you think is the most important thing you've learned in the process of doing what you do?
The ability to listen and understand. Meaning, a lot of times, and including myself when I was younger, when somebody else was talking, I was already formulating what I wanted to say, which meant that I wasn't listening. Sure. I wasn't receiving that information. I just wanted to say what I wanted to say, and I was being polite by trying not to interrupt, even though I really wanted to interrupt and say whatever it is I wanted to say. But what that meant was I was really limiting my ability to receive and understand from the universe what was going on. So the ability to sit and perceive, which includes listening, which includes watching, which includes feeling, and then responding, having that gap between the stimulus of somebody talking or moving in a certain way, their face flinching in a certain way, whatever, and me responding. There's that gap of comprehension of what has actually just transpired. How do they receive that information? And then responding it creates such a dramatic difference in how you can handle situations. So I've personally found that to be one of the most remarkable things. What about you, Josh?
For me, geez, I think that I was just saying it not to somebody not too long ago, learning that the stick is not the only way that I need to motivate my staff, and by my staff I mean myself. I learned when I was a young kid, you use the stick, you can always get more out of yourself. You keep going to the stick, you keep beating yourself over the head, and you can get yourself to push harder. My father was born in 1930, so he came up through the Great Depression, and his answer to most everything was you put your head down and you work harder. And if you can't work anymore, well, take one more step, and now you can. Keep proving to yourself that you can go beyond what you thought you could. And so much of the early part of my life, I started working very, very young. Most of the early part of my life was about learning to grind it out and learning what I was actually capable of, and finding out it was far beyond what I thought it was. If you've never gotten a chance, and it's a worthwhile. I just showed it at the class I taught the other day. There's a YouTube video from a movie called Facing the Giants, and it's the death crawl scene. And I don't know if you've ever played football, but the death crawl, you get down on all fours, somebody gets on your back, and then on your hands and your feet, you have to take in a crawling position and crawl. Usually it's the 20-yard line. And so in this scene, he takes the captain of the team and he says to him, how far do you want me to go? The 30? He says, no, I think you can go to the 50. And so if you get a chance to watch the scene, I tell you, it's take about 5 minutes of your life, but it very well might become one of your faves. Because it's about finding out just what you have in the tank when you really really give yourself an opportunity to push. And that's what I think I learned. Best thing I ever learned was that I could push a lot further than I thought I could. And so that's been my business. I routinely enjoy doing more than other people think is possible. That's what I like to call Tuesday.
Love
Oh, you
that.
can't get done? Oh yeah, man. Come on. Oh, you need to take a day off after speaking all day? I do that 6 days straight in a row. I mean, it's only that maybe take Sundays off. Otherwise, I do it then. Come on, let's see what we could. Let's do 10. Let's do 12. Let's see what happens. I haven't dropped dead yet. Let's see where we can go. Right? Let's push. Um, and it's fun because I think one of the things that I enjoy most about it, Parag, if I'm going to be really honest, is like when I get younger guys that haven't tapped into that yet, and you go into like pure animal mode. Like we got to unload this truck, and I'm just going, and I'm burying him in the dust, just moving stuff. I know the next day my back's going to kill me, my leg, like everything's going to hurt. But I'm showing them how to work, what you can do if you really go. They're worried about being tired and sweaty. I can eat later. I can go to the bathroom later. I can do all that stuff later. Let's get this done now, and learn how to drive. It's, I suppose if I was going to summarize to you where the brain damage came from. I think I've told this on here before, but the very first thing I remember my father saying to me, I was maybe 3 or 4 years old, and I'm sitting in the middle seat of the car in the front. He used to take and put me on the armrest. This is back before you had to have a seatbelt on the kids, no car seats or whatever. He put his arm around me and he'd drive the car, and that's how we used to go places. I was like, "Daddy, I need to go to the bathroom." And he looked over at me with the side eye. He says, "Son, sometimes you need to learn to soldier." That was it. And so I had to wait. That's just all there was to it. And I learned that from him at a young age. And I watched him many times do things that humanly, like nobody should be able to do this stuff, but just that mental toughness he had built over a lifetime. And man, if I can get up to the shoestrings of that level, man, that's the mental fortitude, man. It's just incredible. I could see probably you've seen a little bit of it yourself, possibly in the older generation, man. Some of those guys are just tough as nails and something else. But yeah,
Yeah, they haven't grown up with the comforts we have. So
they don't know
it's
comfort.
nice for us to, I think growing up in our generation, it's, we have the old school guys like your dad, my dad. Then you and I have been around long enough that we didn't have the internet. There's a part of our lives where we didn't have the internet.
Hmm.
Kids today don't have that.
Yep.
So they've grown up dramatically different with everything being instantly available to them. If you're hungry, you can order food. Whereas when we were growing up, video games were a passive activity. Now there's a whole business, Twitch, that's around literally watching other people play video games. It's
Yep.
a passive activity of already a semi passive activity.
It was too much work. I'm going to watch somebody else do it
That's right. That's
as I
right.
eat chips.
That's right.
It's, oh my God. I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, that's pretty seriously out there. Parag, I think I know the answer to this. I think you kind of already answered it, but it's always a question I like to ask. What do you think makes you passionate about what you do?
I think it's seeing the results is what makes me passionate about what I do. Not only in the service and the effects that it has on my clients, but each time that I get to help a client, I feel better about it.
Mm,
So in that way, it is kind of a selfish thing, but it's selfish in the best way, right?
yeah,
It makes me feel good to be of service to others. So I love seeing the growth in them. And then I also really like seeing the growth in myself of pushing past those things that I thought were either impossible or very, very challenging, or a situation where I'm thinking, I don't know how I'm going to get around this. I don't know how I'm going to fix this for my client. And I've got to sit there until I figure it out. And I've got to think about it and think about it and think about it because my client needs me to do it. And when I came out of it on the other side, having solved that problem for them, it's built my own confidence. Not only have I
sure.
solved that problem for and it feels good, but now I've got the confidence, that increased confidence of having done it. And I think that's also really where confidence comes from. I know that's a big thing in today's day and age. We're trying to teach school kids how to have confidence. It's like the way you teach confidence is it can't be fake. It has to be
No,
real. And the only way to do that is
accomplishment.
through adversity, 100%. Accomplishment, something has to be accomplished.
Yeah, through
So
adversity.
through adversity,
Yeah.
accomplishment through adversity. is
Totally,
probably
man.
the secret to confidence.
Absolutely. Everything else is just fake. It's just put on. You're trying to turn them into a con man. It's one of the things that you were hitting on before, and I love it so much because I didn't know it until I was writing my ethics course with my brother. Ethics, I had always learned it as here's the rules. These are the ethical rules. Don't break them. Ethics has always been the study of how human beings should behave in order to live a good and meaningful life that they can be proud of. That's what ethics, since the Greeks, that's what the ethics was always about. And so the fact that you feel good from doing something excellently just means that you're actually being ethical. You're actually doing things in line with how human beings are made to work. And to me, that's such a cool piece of this whole equation. The idea that I'm just functioning according to what I was made to do. A hammer is happiest when hammering a nail. So the question then becomes, what is my nail and how do I hammer it well? Right.
Love
And
that.
so, yeah, no, well, I mean, ethics is one of the things that we teach so poorly. As an attorney, you get ethics. For me in real estate, we have to get ethics every couple of years, right? And I go to an ethics class, and I mean, I always say to people, if you can't score Ambien and you need to take a 3-hour nap, there's ethics class because it's the same thing every single time. It's the same story. They take a list of rules, and somebody reads the PowerPoint slides to you, and you just want to take it. And like, how can 3 hours take this long?
Right. Yeah, because you have it. And it's ironic because there's all these industries. Ethics is this class that everybody's got to take, from real estate to law to medicine. And by the time you're ready to take that class, the reality is you either got ethics or you don't. You can't learn
Right.
ethics in a class. That's got to be an innate thing. So you're not going to learn
Totally.
it from some school or somebody telling you what to do.
Well, that's the thing. That's what ethics has become, is them telling us what to do rather than telling us why to do it.
Right.
And ethics really is the study of how do you do things in such a way that you can be proud of the life you've lived in retrospect? How do you give yourself, from the end looking back, something you can look back at and be proud of that you've done? That's what it's always been. And that's not how it's taught. It's not how we think of it. It's something that here's a list of rules, don't break them or you get in trouble. And I think that's just not doing anybody any favors either, you know?
100% right. Yeah,
So
it's what we were
go
talking
ahead.
about earlier. Living the principles and being about the principles as opposed to some superficial, hey, I checked the box, I took this class.
Box checked. So a little bit of a change of pace, a little bit more of a lightning round kind of thing. What have you accomplished in business, would you say, that you are most proud of?
At this point, we've helped hundreds of clients with their respective aspects of their business. So we've saved or recovered tens of millions of dollars for clients. And candidly, I got a piece of that too. So it was profitable for both of us. But
Nice.
I've made people more money than I made for myself. I think that's incredibly important. The exchange of value is that when somebody's giving you something, you want to give them more in exchange. This
Yep.
idea of like the law of abundant exchange, give
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
more than what they're paying you to do.
Exceed expectations. Absolutely. You don't deserve this thing I'm giving you. I'm giving you extra because that's just how I do what I do. This is who
100%.
I am.
Yes.
So let me take and turn it a little bit, peel the curtain back a little bit if you're willing to have your curtain slightly peeled. What are you most proud of in life outside of business that you've accomplished?
That's a deep one. Let's see.
Mhm.
I'm I'll say this. So I've been privileged enough to be a relatively new father. My daughter is a little over 2 years old.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I make it a point to be there with my daughter when we're hanging out. I've got obviously a lot going on with the law firm, which is my practice, my business, and it's litigation, which is very deadline intensive.
Oh, yeah,
And
sure.
there's millions and millions of dollars riding on these cases. So to mess something up or to miss a deadline is a huge deal. So we don't miss deadlines. But also, there's an aspect of being there with my daughter, teaching her the things that I wish that somebody had taught me when I was younger.
Yeah.
So something as simple as when she's frustrated that she can't do something or can't find something, it's just being there and helping her breathe through it
Hmm.
and just saying, look, let's breathe. And I see it. At first it doesn't click, it doesn't connect. She's just really frustrated.
Yeah.
And then I see her lock eyes and then she'll breathe. And
Yeah.
like she'll breathe deeply, she'll stop crying. And then we look at what the solution is. Because that's the biggest thing is I can't solve all the problems for her. I can't be
Right.
there and coddle her through life. The best thing
Totally.
I can do, the best thing I can do as a father is teach her how to overcome her own adversity
How to
because
find
she's going to
solutions.
face it.
Yeah.
So better that she learns how to face it well and deal with those hardships. That's the best thing I think I could do. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of outside of work is making that time, carving out that time and really seeing how she's responded so well to it and adapted to it.
Hmm. It's the most important job that's out there, man. Making people. The way they turn out is it's one of the things I think a lot about is the leg up that I got in a lot of ways from what I saw as a kid from both of my parents. The fact that it makes it easier for me than for other people that haven't seen, that the work ethic and whatever else. I mean, yeah, obviously I saw bad too. I saw, my father was a pretty angry guy, and I as a younger man, I saw that and I had to fight that because I had seen it. That was one of the negatives that comes. But, giving them this picture of this stuff being done well is just going to make it so much easier for them to reference back. Hey, look, I've seen this done well. And I'm the byproduct of somebody that's who I come from. If they can do it, I can do it. I'm from them. I can do this. Right. And I think there's just so much value to that. So, man, kudos to that. One of the most important things in life, outgoing. I love it. All right. If you give our listeners, don't know if you're ever going to see these folks again, they're here, have their voice in their ear. If you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
My advice to the listeners would be whatever you do, put your heart into it. Really dedicate yourself to it because even if you don't get the outcome that you're looking for, and sometimes you won't, no matter how hard you try, you just won't, unfortunately, because there will be variables you can't control. But as
Yeah.
long as you put your heart into it, you'll know that you did that and you'll come out from it better without any doubts about had you dedicated yourself differently, could the results have been different? Because
Yeah.
I think that not doing that is really shortchanging yourself. And that compounds, that erodes your spirit in a way, not putting your heart into things.
Totally.
Whereas putting your heart into things really fulfills the spirit, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah. Whether you want to say going all in or leaving it all on the field. I mean, there is something to that leaving it all on the field thing. You can look yourself in the eye afterwards and say, look, I just got beat. It's that they were better than me. It's not that if I had tapped into my reserves a little bit more, if I had just tried a little harder, look, if there's nothing left, it leaves you with no regrets. And life's just too short
Right.
for those
And it
regrets.
is painful. I think that maybe that,
Oh,
that is like a misconception that as long as you gave it your all, that's all that matters. Well, it's
mhm.
not all that matters. Winning is important, but the ability to look yourself in the eye and know that you gave it your all and still know that it's going to be painful
Yeah.
because you gave it your all. It's going to be painful. And that's going to be a lesson you've got to learn, but it's still important. And the
Yeah.
reason
Yeah.
it's painful is it's supposed to be painful.
Sadly, it's the way we learn best often in life is from getting our hands smacked when we put it in the cookie jar, right? It's the pain that is that great educator. And frankly, when I look back at my life, it has been the painful events that have been the ones that have been the greatest agents for change, helping me to take and progress to be something better. It's unfortunate. I wish I didn't have to learn that way. Honestly, I wish I could just, like I wish eating cookies would give me those results. But sadly, the cookie diet doesn't do it.
Absolutely. It's funny because I think everybody wants to think of themselves as a successful person. They want to think of themselves as a confident person. They want to think of themselves as an adept person who
Hmm.
can learn things and handle things quickly. But the only way to do that is to go through the pain of the learning lessons. There's no other way around it. Because if they haven't felt that pain, if I haven't felt that pain, if I haven't felt that adversity, then when there is real pain or real adversity, I would then shrink. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for all those lessons, as painful as they were. And that's the thing that really got me through them is knowing that on the other side of it, I've gained a lot from just having gone through it.
And you're able to take your own measure. You're able to define yourself to yourself as someone that perseveres when you take and get your butt kicked and you see yourself get back up and, well, wait a second, Because you don't really know until you do it, until you get yourself back. Like you like to think in your heart that you're the kind of person that perseveres, but until you do it, you don't really know.
That's right.
And so, let me ask you this one: a little bit of a change of pace. What one book or movie would you recommend to people listening?
I'm thinking because there's many angles I could go with this. I think I think Think and Grow Rich is a really good book by Napoleon
Okay.
Hill,
Yep. Napoleon Hill.
or How to Win Friends and Influence
Influence
People by
people.
Dale
Yeah.
Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie's book. Yep.
I
Both
know that
both
that's
wonderful.
not unique advice, but it is good advice. These
Yeah.
are great
There's a
books.
reason why it's not unique.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. All right. What one famous person in history would you want to sit down and have lunch with?
I think I'd go with Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay.
I think the ability to be willing to endure that kind of pain and issues for something you fundamentally so believe in, and that you're so confident that other people will follow you, in the sense that Mahatma Gandhi, he was a lawyer and essentially a human rights activist. He didn't have an army. He didn't
Hmm.
have some huge PR company behind him. Just one man.
Yep.
And this idea that you could literally, one of the most powerful countries and
Empires.
empires in the whole world, in the
Yeah.
history of mankind, was going to imprison you, and you still can make a lasting change without being forgotten. That then echoes and makes the whole echoes through time, and makes the greatest one of the greatest civilizations in the history of mankind listen and make a difference. I
Yeah.
think that's incredible. But that takes a lot of inner strength to be willing to do that.
Really does. It really does. I mean, what it takes in those, it's not in the daytime. It's when you haven't seen anybody for 25 days straight and nobody's talking about you and you don't think anybody's listening. How do you take and maintain that consistency, that drive to keep going, that one step more? No, a great object lesson of that. All right. Similar question, but different. Who would you want to be stuck in a foxhole with taking fire? If you're stuck in a foxhole taking fire, who would you want in there with you?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm not sure. Who would your answer be, Josh?
Me, it's a tough answer, a tough question. Nobody's ever asked me to answer that one either. I would say probably my brother or my dad, one of the two of those guys, because just the shared brain damage and the fact that I know uh, they could get shot 50 times if there's anything left at all. They're still firing. They're still looking to take and hold their end of the bargain up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be my dad, or one of my of a handful of my few closest friends, because they have that same mindset that we're not giving up. We're getting out of this together.
Hmm.
And that, I think, is so powerful. Just
Yeah.
knowing that you're in it together, and neither one of you is giving up on the other.
Yeah. Now there's a song I've referenced on here a couple of times. It's they're called I forget what it's something from the Marine Corps, right? And they're always blood and guts their stuff. I mean, it's always so uniquely them, everything the Marines come up with. But the one line in the song is, "If you stand next to me, you'll never stand alone." The idea that I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm going to hold up my end of the bargain because I've made a promise to you. And so you can always depend on my word that I will be there. And I think there's just something that rings deeply true in my mind. And the list of people that fall in that category are so few and far between. And I strive to be the person that keeps that promise, right? That's who I want to be. And so folks that are on that same plane and that same mindset, those are the ones that I seek to have around me.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, or you know what? Maybe I'd pick David Goggins. I feel like he'd
Oh
know.
yeah, no, he'd be a good guy.
He'd
Yeah,
be
no,
good for
he'd
the
be a good one.
mindset and the tactical moves of how to get out of the situation.
Successfully navigate out of the foxhole. Yeah,
That's
no.
right.
All right, couple of quick ones here, and we're done. What do you do to unwind, Parag?
I I like spending time with my family, and I like going outdoors. That's a big one for me. Just spending some time outdoors, getting some fresh air, going on a hike, being outside with friends. I'm lucky enough to live pretty close to the beach here in Los Angeles, so I'll either go with friends or family to the beach or on a hike. And I found that being out in nature is restorative in a way that seeing things on screens or being indoors just isn't. There's something about it that just makes me feel better.
Oh man, yeah. No, I mean when you see the bigness and grandness of it, it's just, I mean, it's like the Grand Canyon. You can't. I'll tell you, the other one is Alaska, man. If you ever are worried about running out of trees, just go to Alaska. They have trees for
Love that.
days everywhere. Like bald eagles, they're hard to find. No, they're not. There's
Mm.
one. There's one. There's five of them. There's a nest of them over there. I mean, it's just they're everywhere. Bear. There's a bear. There's fish. What do you want? I mean, it's just like if you want to see what the United States of America looked like before anybody was here, man, it's just, if you've never read the book Undaunted Courage, it's the story of Lewis and Clark and like their journals traveling across this when like there was nobody here. It's it's definitely a very different view of the United States and nature and all. So it's just really worthwhile thing. So yeah, I can totally dig that. All right. Well, you seem like a guy that's got a lot going on, Parag. So I want to ask you this question. What's next for you? What's the big project? What's the thing you're working on? What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm working on my own podcast right now called From Crisis to Justice. So
Nice.
the idea of this is to provide an open opportunity, an open forum. I'm going to be talking with business owners, entrepreneurs, as well as providing my own tips and tricks on how to successfully navigate these kinds of challenging business and legal disputes. Because I think that we can learn a lot from each other. And if you can learn from somebody without having had to necessarily go through it yourself, so you're better prepared whenever the adversity strikes as a business owner or just as a person, I think that that'll serve you really well. And I'd love to be able to do that. So I'm starting my own podcast. Hopefully you'll come on there as well. And we can chop it up again.
Of course, man. A chance to talk to you. I consider myself thoroughly fortunate to
Love it,
have that
man. Thank you.
opportunity. Last question, Parag, for you. Where can people find you?
Yes, so I'm on Instagram at Parag Amin ESQ. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. My first name Parag, Parag, last name Amin, Amin. And From Crisis to Justice will be the podcast as well. So hopefully
Good
look
title.
out for that pretty soon. And yeah, hope to see you all there.
Parag, thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom. I'm sure everybody listening will really appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.
All right, guys. Till next time, this is Josh Cadillac signing out from the Know Your Shit podcast, reminding you that you got to know what the hell you're talking about. You got to know what you do, know it well, pursue excellence in everything you do. Life's too short for anything less. Till next time, guys.